It's episode 30 of Give That Fan a Podcast. Kind of like episode 45, but a bunch of those were a game show, so those don't really count in the tally. I'm Ryan Blake. That's Paul Valley. Paul, how are we feeling tonight? The Orioles are playing the Yankees. They're down 6-1. Maybe sparking a little bit of a rally, but how you doing?
I'm doing all right. The spring training results don't really get to me one way or the other. You can never get too high. You can never get too low. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a little bit on the show. But other than that, I'm doing well. Looking forward to the weekend, as I was telling you in the green room before the show started. Tomorrow's my dog's first birthday, so Laura asked me to take off work, and I obliged. And we're gonna hang out with Bruce Dog tomorrow and treat him real respectable lack on his birthday. So
There you go. You stood in the
doing
bat
good,
around in
man.
the morning, though?
Yeah. We have the bat around at from 10 a.m. to about 12. Honestly, Luke Jackson's sitting in again, so we'll probably go till closer to 1 because he doesn't have a time limit this time. And it's our MLB season preview, which always seems to run longer than most of our normal shows. So we're gonna do that. Then I'm hitting an open house real quick just to kind of say hi to somebody, get my name out there for the mortgage industry since I'm licensed, and then it's all Bruce all day.
There you go. That's the way to do it. I have a toast in my lap. I have a pickle sleeping. Actually, you might be able to see him in there.
I do.
He's been there for a couple hours, and then Pepper was in here. I don't know where she went, but I'm kind of limited in my space because I'm trying to balance a cat on my knees. First time in Give That Fan a Podcast. There's Pepper. Hello. First time in Give That Fan a Podcast history. I am enjoying a nice glass of whiskey as we do the show. I don't normally do
Nice.
that, but I had some salted caramel Crown Royal sitting around, so I threw a little bit in a glass.
Nice.
Cat jumps off and scratches my leg as usual. All right, let's get into it. Paul, are you a video game guy? Because MLB The Show 23 came out for early access last night on Xbox Game Pass. I bought the early access thinking I was buying the game, and then realized that I also needed to purchase the game. But fortunately, the game came free with my subscription, so I was able to access it last night. Playing around with some Orioles, started a franchise already. Do you mess with the game at all?
I used to play MLB The Show religiously when I was younger. I still play Madden. I don't know why everybody hates Madden now. They think it's all like the same game, just new, like different names and just different season, but the same game. And so I still play that. I probably will play MLB The Show eventually, but I usually haven't. I haven't bought it the day that it came out in quite some time. So I do enjoy it though.
Did you have 22? Or when
I
was the
did.
last
I did.
time you played? Oh, you
I
did. Okay.
I always end up getting the game every year. This year, it hasn't been at the top of my priority list. Today was the first day I thought, man, I should probably go pick that game up soon. But I'm just so busy these days that I don't know when I'm going to have time to play it. And with Laura home all the time now, I mean, Laura's not home all the time now, but when I get home, if she's not home, she gets home pretty soon after I do. So there's not a lot of time. She doesn't like when I play the video games, so I can only play when I'm home and she's not. Basically,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. So when you do play, are you a franchise mode guy? Do you try to collect all the cards and do Diamond Dynasty? Like, what's
I
your?
have never done that. I don't care to learn it. I'm not that invested in it. I just like to
Yeah.
play offline franchise mode, and I just like to play. To me, I'm still like the little kid Paul that would go in there and just try and rack up as many crazy stats as possible and go through the season and be the best team possible.
I do this. Do you play all the games in your franchise?
I've never done it. I have.
Really?
I've never done it. I've
Hmm.
I've I've tried the game. It's so much. Now I've simulated through and gone to the playoffs and stuff like that, but I haven't done that in quite some time. But I've never actually played every single game. It's very time consuming. Those games last. If you don't do the hybrid broadcast mode, those games take over an hour, and even with the hybrid broadcast mode, they're still taking 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah. I never messed with. I shouldn't say that. I've messed a little bit with Diamond Dynasty and like collecting the cards, but it's so much like people get all excited about like they opened up like a 91 overall Carlos Rodon, and I'm like, okay, I just don't understand the appeal. I don't mean to bash it, but I'm franchise mode through and through. I love
Mm-hmm.
controlling the Orioles and making roster moves and trading away some guys, building through free agency, scouting. I play as many games as I can. I even play some minor league games if I have time. But it's interesting this year. The Orioles' highest ranked player is Felix Bautista, who, by the way, he's an 85 overall, which is fine. They still have him at 6'5", 190 pounds.
See, I saw you put that in the notes, and it makes me think that that's exactly what Madden does. They just transferred the player from the last game to this game because, let's be honest, I think I heard somewhere a long time ago that it takes, like, if you were to make the game from scratch, it would take like 4 years to make the game. So I get why they do it, but like, I can go in and adjust his height and his weight to the right size in like 2 minutes. They should be able to do the same thing.
Right. I don't understand why that's so difficult. Now, in fairness to them, he was listed on Baseball Reference and MLB and all those sites as 6'5", 190 for quite some time. I guess that was his listed height and weight when he first signed over here. But yeah, bump him up to 6'8". I think 270 might be the highest you can go on the show, but crank it up, fill out his neck a little bit. He's the mountain. He's out there built like a normal guy, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Outside of Felix Bautista, Dylan Tate is a 76 overall. Brian Baker is 71. So those are our two best relievers outside of our closer. The next guy on the list ranked as a 70 overall is Darwinzon Hernandez, which blows he's above Michael Givens. He's above CNL Perez. He's above Tyler Wells, Austin Voth. Like, does that compute with you at all? Because I don't get it.
His stuff can be filthy. He's got like an elite fastball, but no, none of it computes. The only thing that does compute is that a lot of people, and I imagine that the people that are creating these games, they probably aren't the biggest baseball fans in the world.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? So I imagine that they're probably thinking, oh, well, the Orioles aren't very good. They're never good. We'll make them bad. Like, well, these guys are going to be bad without really actually knowing much about them. But you also have to take into account the fact that a lot of these guys, they only did it for the first time last year. And so maybe they have to do it more than once to get those rankings up there. I've always thought the rankings were too low no matter who was in the game. So
yeah, I was running through it a little bit ago, and one thing that stood out to me, Juan Soto is an 88 and Hunter Renfroe is an 86, which that's way too close. Way too close for me.
That's nuts. I guess Juan Soto's average hasn't been there the last year or so. But
he had a down year last year. He was still pretty damn good.
He walked like over 100 times. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. I'll prove that this year. I'm not so shocked at him being an 88 so much as I'm shocked at Hunter Renfroe, who is like Willie Mo Pena, but like not being an 86. How is Hunter Renfroe an 86 overall? That makes no sense to me.
He would be the highest ranked player on the Orioles. Speaking of the Orioles, my first order of business when I started my franchise was I signed Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson to 14-year contract extensions.
Be nice if you were running the team. Did you say 14-year contract?
That's the highest you can go.
14
years with player options for a 15.
There you go. All right.
So I've got Adley till he's 40. I've got Gunnar till he's like 36. So I posted a screenshot, and one thing that people noticed was Adley's contact and power against lefties is 40 and 42 respectively, which they must have only looked at his performance from the major leagues last year because his track record throughout the minors suggests that that's way too low.
Mm-hmm.
I cranked it up to like mid 50s. To be fair though, there are only 3 catchers that are ranked higher overall than Adley, and they're Alejandro Kirk at 86, Will Smith at 88, JT Realmuto at 90. And those make sense, I suppose. I wouldn't put Kirk ahead of him.
Adley's better than everybody except for Realmuto. And after this year, you can make a serious debate, I think.
I think so too. I think you can certainly argue it, but it's not like I see those names and I think it's absurd or anything.
Right. No, they're good.
Yeah. Kyle Stowers. I think Kyle Stowers is an everyday player. MLB The Show has him as a 60 overall. Are they underrating Kyle Stowers, or do Orioles fans think a little bit too highly of him? Because I don't know which it is.
I go back and forth on him. I think 60 is probably fine for him. He didn't get a lot of run last year. He barely got any at bats against left-handed pitching. They were in a playoff race. They called him up, and he barely played. He's got to prove it to get a higher rating. Now, if he goes out this year and he hits 250 with 25 home runs, then he'll have a higher ranking next year. But I don't know that he's even an everyday player right now. Sometimes I think he is. Sometimes I'm not sure. He's got to start hot. He's got to start hot to get that ranking up. But we'll see. I am so torn on how I feel about Kyle Stowers to this point.
I just want to see the guy get a chance. That's all I want.
Yeah,
I want him to get some regular run out in the outfield and see what he can do with consistent at bats at the big league level, because we haven't seen that from him yet. And he showed that he could do it in the minors. I'd like to see it improve it up here.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I don't want this to be a whole MLB The Show podcast, because
Sure.
that's not what we are. I do want to bring up a couple other things I noticed. Kobe Mayo is a 56 overall. Max Wagner and Cesar Prieto are both ranked higher than Kobe Mayo. I don't get that. Jackson Holliday, on the flip side, is ranked higher overall as a 69 than Jordan Westburg at 68 and Joey Ortiz at 64. So they do think very highly of Jackson Holliday.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he's got a potential, which is what you expect for the number 1 overall pick. But those are a couple things that stood out to me. And one thing, so normally I go through, Paul, when I start a franchise, and I make sure the pitchers are accurate with their pitch types and what they're capable of doing, the velocities and all that. And normally I have to make some pretty decent changes. This year they nailed it. Like I was going through and comparing it to Baseball Savant with like the specific pitch types and the average miles per hour, and they got. I don't think I had to change a single thing. It was pretty spot on, which is impressive and very helpful.
Yeah, I found that I've usually had to go and add a pitch here or some velocity there for guys in the game. I add stuff anyway because I always feel like they underrate Orioles players. Like I always end up adding stuff anyway. But I have noticed that some of the guys, they don't even have pitches that they throw listed for them.
It doesn't make sense, but they did a pretty good job with that this year, so I'll take that for sure. All right, sure. Away from video game talk, it's on my mind because that's what I've been doing the last day. Kyle Gibson was officially named the Orioles' opening day starter. Dean Kramer will follow him as the number 2 guy in the rotation to start the year. We don't know anything beyond that. Gibson not doing great tonight, Paul. Gave up 6 runs in 2 2/3 innings. I don't know if he's back out for the 4th. It's hard to follow on game day. But gave up 3 runs in the first inning. Had a visit from Brandon Hyde and head trainer Brian Ebel. Something with his hand. Stayed in.
They speculated they were speculating that it looked like a blister.
That would make sense. So he gives up a 3-run homer to Oswaldo Cabrera, I believe is his name.
One of their top prospects.
Yeah. Was pulled from the game with 2 outs, 2 runners on base. Already had given up the 3-run homer. Came back in for the second inning because spring training rules aren't really rules and you can do what you want. Came out, gave up another 3-run homer, this time to Kyle Higashioka. So 6 runs. He is through 3 2/3 innings, 6 earned runs, 9 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, and those 2 home runs. Not what you want from the guy who was just declared opening day starter.
Yeah, Phoenix Sanders getting that clean third of an inning in relief in the first inning before Gibson came back out. Look, man, I don't
put the 0 ERA.
Yeah, I don't put much stock. Like I said at the beginning of the program, I don't put much stock into starting pitcher being bad or being good. If they're good, it's like, okay, great, they're good, because that one I think that you can take more from, especially at this point in spring training when everybody's probably kind of ready to go for the season. You're facing more legitimate lineups. If they're still pitching well, you can put a lot of stock into that. But a lot of times these guys are working on stuff, or maybe he felt like in his bullpen before the game today, maybe his curveball wasn't the same, wasn't where he wanted it to be, or maybe his changeup wasn't where he wanted it to be, and so he wants to really work on that, and he's having a hard time locating, or he's leaving it too high up. So that stuff I don't really get too upset about. I have no doubts that he's going to come out on opening day and give the Orioles 5 1/3 innings of 2-run ball, if not better.
Sure. And that all day.
And we'll be sitting there thinking, oh, what a great pickup. So I'm not worried in the least.
It's weird because, and I tweeted this yesterday, I when a player on my favorite team is performing well during spring training, the thought that's going through my head is, oh, this guy's ready. He's going to have an amazing year. He's locked in, ready to go. And then when they're struggling, I'm like, well, it's spring training. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the case this spring. And a prime example of that, Grayson Rodriguez, his ERA this spring is up to 7.04. He said he feels great. He's had a couple rough outings his last 2 times out, and both times he said it's the best he's felt all spring. Are you more encouraged by that than you are discouraged by the numbers? Because like you said, it's the results aren't necessarily what you're hoping for in the spring. It's about tweaking certain things, working on certain things. I mean, Kyle Bradish came out and gave up 9 earned the other day, and it's because he was working with a different set position and was kind of out of tempo. It just didn't work for him. So players are trying out different things in the spring. It's not all about the results.
So with Grayson, that's exactly what it is. I think if he had not had the injury last year and made 17 starts for the Orioles from June on, right, and had pitched to a 3.72 ERA, just a random number I threw out there, we wouldn't be thinking twice about this. If he was in his 3rd season, we wouldn't be thinking twice about this. It's because he hasn't debuted yet, and it's been 3 or 4 starts in a row now where he's got to the 3rd or 4th inning and not been able to get anybody out. You have to kind of look at how it's played out. Some weak singles, a bad hop infield single yesterday when he could have got out of the inning without any runs allowed. He could have got out of it unscathed. So I look at that. I look at the fact that he came back out for the 4th last night and on 13 pitches got 3 up, 3 down, including 2 strikeouts. And that's what I look at. This is another guy. He knows how to pitch. He's too good to expect him to go out there and have these kinds of. I mean, he's going to struggle at times. He's a rookie. He's never pitched in the majors before, but I expect that he'll go out there and we won't see nearly the same thing that we've seen the last 3 or 4 starts. He might struggle, but I don't think he's going to let it blow up to 4 or 5 runs in a given inning.
So with that said, he's still in your opening day rotation at this
point?
Yeah,
if they were going to bring him up last June and then he got hurt and Mike Elias came out and said, as far as I'm concerned, he's in our starting rotation. It was basically his job to lose, right? And I don't think that he's done enough to lose it. He's had 3 or 4 bad innings over the last combined over the last 3 or 4 starts. So it's not like he's going out there and getting roughed up from the 1st inning on. And I also look at the fact, who else are you giving that start to? That spot to, because Tyler Wells hasn't looked great. Austin Voth certainly hasn't looked great. As much as I love him, DL Hall isn't stretched out enough. You're not giving it to Spencer Watkins. Zimmerman's already been sent back down. Same with Drew Rom. You're not giving it to those guys. So I imagine it's going to be Grayson Rodriguez. Not to mention the fact that there's that new rule in play, right, where if you have a rookie on your opening day roster and he accrues a season's, I think it's 60 days he has to be on the roster. He accrues a full season. If he finishes in the top 2 for Rookie of the Year or top 3 for MVP or Cy Young, you get an extra draft pick between the 1st round and the 2nd round. The Orioles didn't call up Adley till May 20th last year, or May 21st. Now, granted, he had the injury, but then he was kind of slow played for like 3 or 4 weeks in the minors once he came back from that. He didn't start the year on the opening day roster. He still finished 2nd in AR Rookie of the Year voting, so he gained that extra year. He got that. He gets the arbitration the year earlier, is what I mean. And the Orioles got nothing out of that. Grayson Rodriguez is projected to finish 2nd in AR Rookie of the Year voting behind Gunnar Henderson. So if he's going to finish in the top 2, even if he doesn't, do the Orioles really want to risk getting basically a 2nd first-round pick by not having him up, especially when Mike Elias has said he thinks he's ready? I think he's on the opening day roster for sure. That was very long-winded, and I'm sorry.
That's okay. I feel like after every show, you apologize for long-winded answers. It's good. It makes for more conversation, fills the time. I'm glad you said what you did, though, about not only has Grayson not really gone out there and lost the rotation spot, but no one has come and taken it from him either.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up all those names, and none of them have been, exceptional in the spring. So I don't think you give it to somebody else. I think Grayson's your guy. And if he doesn't get hurt last year, his debut would have happened in July or August last year anyway.
Oh, he's coming in June. He got hurt in June, and that was going to be his last triple.
That's right, June. Sorry, yeah. I get my summer months confused. It's all baseball season to me.
Yeah, right.
Mike Baumann is a relief pitcher now. I kind of saw this coming, and I think I like him better in that role. I think the stuff will play up a little bit. Big power fastball. Not going to blow you away with the velocity, but it's good enough, has enough movement, and then little wipeout slider that he's got going for him. I think that's a good combo for a guy in the bullpen, and we'll see him likely in the majors and likely in a short relief kind of role. Do you think that suits him better than trying to keep going with him as a starter?
At this point,
I think that experiment's kind of worn out.
At this point, I do. I remember 3.5 years ago, summer 2019, he gets called up to Bowie, and he throws a 97 pitch no hitter against Harrisburg, where his highest velocity fastball came in the ninth inning. And he was just so good, and we had all these big expectations for him because the rest of the system didn't look like it had much by way of pitching.
Right.
Now you fast forward, and they were talking even back then, he's probably in the major leagues going to be a back end reliever. This is a guy I'm okay with because I don't think that he has elite stuff to be a legitimate number 1 or number 2 starting pitcher. I think he has good enough stuff to be a 4 or 5, but the Orioles don't need that. The Orioles need a guy in the back end of their bullpen, especially with Givens having a bit of a sore knee. Tate's going to miss the first month of the season. You're going to need somebody to come in there, and I think Baumann fits that role nicely. I think it's a great fit for him and a great fit for the team.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's better suited for him, better suited for us. And I'm excited to see how it goes. It's, the best relievers are often failed starters. And so it sounds bad to say it that way, but that's true. And maybe Baumann is the next man up in that.
Well, and let's make no mistake about it. He's not a failed starter. Everything that he's done to this point in his career has shown you that he's been a good starter throughout his minor league career. It's just that's not going to translate as well to the majors as guys like Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall. Right. And if he can help you more out of the pen, that's the guy that you should move from a starting role to a relief role. Because in the big league level, do you want to keep him a starter just so he can be a 4 or 5? Not when you have all these other guys.
Right. It comes down to opportunity as well, and there aren't enough rotation spots to go around. As weird as that is to say, it feels like we've been clamoring for starters for quite some time, and now it seems like we have our guys in place. And maybe even one too many when John Means comes back. So we'll see what happens. Cedric Mullins is back from the World Baseball Classic. Homered in his first game. I believe it was a 3-run shot yesterday. I'm getting my days mixed up.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
But exciting to have Mullins back in the fold and making an impact already. Hasn't put up exceptional numbers in the spring. Did hit a homer for the U.S. in the World Baseball Classic.
And a triple.
Yeah, so he put on a good show in limited opportunity out there. So certainly nice to have him back in the mix. Anthony Santander starting at first base tonight. Second or third time this spring he's done that. And there's a competition for left-handed bat, backup first baseman, something along those lines. The guys left in the mix are Josh Lester, Nomar Mazara, Ryan O'Hearn, and Franchy Cordero. Do we need one of those guys to make the roster? Do any of those guys make the roster? Franchy Cordero's got an OPS over 1,200, which is very good. O'Hearn and Lester started off strong, but have kind of simmered down a little bit recently. Do we have a need for any of those 4 guys?
A need? No. You want to spell Ryan Mountcastle at first base, right? And you kind of feel like that. They want the lefty bat to maybe come off the bench for them, but at the same time, you almost feel like they brought in these guys to kind of light a fire under Mountcastle. And if that's the case, it worked because he's had a monstrous spring. He's scorching everything he hits. And the way I look at it, where are they going to play? You're not giving Ryan Mountcastle 40 days off. You're not. He's going to be in your lineup 150 times, whether he's DHing or playing first base. Adley's going to play some first. McCann's going to play some first. Santander is going to play some first. Vavra in a pinch will play there. We know that Heston Kjerstad was getting work at first base too. They have options, and as well as Franchy Cordero has been hitting, and as well as good as they've all looked, that's again, it's spring training. What have you done in the major leagues to prove that you belong here? And to me, it's none of them are making the team.
I agree. I don't see a real need for any of them. I don't really see a spot for any of them. And like you said, when Mountcastle's on the bench, it's going to be some mix of Santander, maybe Rutschman a couple times, James McCann a few times, but Mountcastle's your guy. And I don't think you need to take up a roster spot for someone who is just there to have, a couple starts a month. Paul, much like me just now when I'm trying to pull my cat off of the picture hanging on my wall, uh, Ramon Arias has also been scratched twice in the last 2 nights. Thursday
Nice.
after taking a ground ball. Thank you. I didn't. I planned on saying something like that. I just didn't articulate it well, but I'm glad I got there. He was scratched Thursday after taking a ground ball off of the thumb in practice, and then scratched again tonight as well. When it happened yesterday, there wasn't a report of why Ramon Arias had been scratched. And there were some fans on Twitter who were thinking, oh, is maybe a trade in the works? The Orioles have a lot of infielders. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed when I found out, not only because obviously you don't want anybody to get hurt. That's a separate issue. But I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't a trade. It's not because I don't like Ramon Arias, but it's because we've got guys like, we've said this a million times before, Joey Ortiz, Connor Norby, Jordan Westburg especially, is hitting very well this spring. He's got a 923 OPS, and more important than that, he is showing off some elite exit velocities. He's gotten up to about 112 miles an hour off the bat. Several of at least 107, 108. So exciting from Westburg. He might be pushing to make the team. I don't know that it'll happen, but he's certainly making a case for himself. And I was kind of hoping that maybe Arias had been dealt to clear up a spot, but no such luck. Just a banged up thumb.
Until it doesn't happen, so until next Thursday when he's still in the roster, I'm not convinced that the trade's not coming. Whether it's Arias or Mateo or both, something's happening. I think Jordan Westburg belongs on this team. I don't think he's going to be on this team, at least not to start the year. But I think he deserves to be. I look at Jordan Westburg and I just see a big leaguer. I see a guy who can play steady defense at second, short, or third. He's really comfortable at second base. It's his most comfortable position. They brought in Adam Frazier for literally no. Well, when they brought him in, it's not that they brought him in for no reason. When they brought him in, they were replacing Rougned Odor. You don't know that any of these guys are going to be anything. You still don't. You still don't know that they're going to be anything. But Westberg's earned it. He's absolutely earned the opportunity. He's your minor league player of the year. He's a former first-round pick. He, like you said, he's hitting well. He's got an OPS above 900. He's got exit velocities approaching 112 miles an hour this spring. I'd rather see him get a shot, and he can steal bases. I'd rather see him get a shot than Adam Frazier. And they're not going to trade Frazier because they just signed him for $8 million. It's either Arias or Mateo that's getting traded, and I think they like Mateo too much. I would not be shocked in the least to see Arias get traded before the season starts.
I would not be shocked either. I'm not expecting it to happen.
Me either.
I'm not convinced that it will, but Adam Frazier, Paul, is Terrin Vavra, but with major league experience. And Vavra, by the way, also crushing the ball this spring. Mm-hmm. He hit 3 home runs all of last season, 2 of them in the minors, 1 for the Orioles. He already has 2 this spring. I don't even know what his numbers are. I just know they're good. He's another guy who's making a case for not only to make the team, but to have regular playing time. And he basically is a younger, more inexperienced, but potentially just as good, if not better version of Adam Frazier, who, like you've said many times, that signing doesn't really make sense.
And look, I said the same thing last year when they signed Odor. I said that signing didn't make sense to me for different reasons, okay? I think that Adam Frazier is still a good player. I think he's far better than Rougned Odor at this point in his career. And if this was last year, I'd be thrilled to have Adam Frazier. And maybe Adam Frazier comes out and hits 290 this year, and we're like, you know what? I'm glad he's here. I'm not going to be mad that he's here, except that I think that there are better options already in the system, and that's why he wasn't a need. Not because I don't think he's a good baseball player. I don't hate the guy by any stretch. I just want to see guys get better that I think are performing better, and they're younger. Get more playing time. I mean, Terrin Vavra, 342, 395, 605. He's got a 1,001 OPS this spring. Of his 13 hits, he's got 2 doubles, 2 homers, and a triple. So 5 of his 13 hits. You know, maybe he's not the prospect that Westburg, Ortiz, or Norby is. Maybe he's not an everyday player, but he's a valuable part of this team. He's going to be on the bench. He's going to play. He's probably going to get 105 starts in different positions this year if he continues to hit and get on base and he takes professional at-bats. I'd rather have him get an opportunity than Adam Frazier. And again, it's nothing against Adam Frazier. It's basically, like you said earlier, it's about opportunity. And I want to see the opportunity go to the younger, more promising players at this point in their careers.
Yeah, I get that completely. And for the last couple of years, we've had, this infield of Odor at second, Mateo at short, and Arias at third. And I think we're ready as the Orioles are starting to turn a corner. We as fans want to see the roster turn a bit of a corner as well and start to see some of these young guys in the lineup regularly. And if we can have an infield that features some combination of Taron Vavra, Gunnar Henderson, Joey Ortiz, Connor Norby, Jordan Westberg, you throw three of those guys in the infield to join up with Ryan Mountcastle, and it feels like a new era of Orioles baseball. And I think that's a big reason why we're clamoring for guys like Vavra to get opportunities, because we want to start to see this roster turnover. We want to start to see the veterans make way for these young guys who have come up and done nothing but dominate in the minor leagues and really see what they can do at the big league level, because otherwise it feels like they're being blocked by lesser talent. And that's not a good position to be in when you're a fan of a team that you feel like can be ready to compete for a World Series.
Absolutely. I just did the Locked On Orioles podcast earlier this week with Connor Newcomb, and it was specifically talking about the Orioles infield, and we both agreed. He asked me to name the 6 Orioles I expected to be in their infield, the 6 infielders in September, and we both named the exact same 6 guys. And I honestly believe you're going to see an infield that is Connor Norby, Jordan Westberg, and Grace Rodriguez. Wow, my brain's fried. And Gunnar Henderson with Joey Ortiz and getting some time at shortstop. You're going to see all these guys rotating because I think Frazier's going to be gone. I think Arias is going to be gone. And Arias is a prime example of what you were just talking about, where he's a good player. He's a Gold Glove defensive third baseman. He's a Gold Glove caliber second baseman. He's got some pop. He gets on base. He was the Orioles' best hitter with runners in scoring position in 2021. But would you rather have the guy with the 248, 305 slash line or the guy with the 275, 375 slash line? It's not that they're not good. It's just that the Orioles are at a point now where there's other guys that are that much better.
Agreed completely. And speaking of guys who we may be talking about the outfield as we are talking about the infield position group, Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, both reassigned to minor league camp. It's not really a surprise. We didn't expect either of them to break camp with the roster. Cowser, we're pretty sure we'll see at some point this year. He made it to 27 games last year at AAA Norfolk. Heston Kjerstad, however, has not played above high A, but he absolutely raked this spring. 4 home runs, OPS over 1,000. We've kind of been assuming, Paul, that Kjerstad's going to start the year at Bowie and perhaps work his way up quickly. Is there any chance, do you think, after this hot spring training, that the Orioles push him a little bit and start him at Norfolk? And if they do, is that a mistake? Because I don't know where I sit on that.
Well, for one, when it started this spring, Kjerstad was getting these big hits against minor league pitchers, against guys he should probably be hitting that well against, right? But then he just kept hitting, and he kept hitting, and he kept hitting. And then the last week or so, he's starting these games, and he's getting these big hits now off of big league pitchers. That being said, as much as I would love to see him start in AAA or somehow have made the Orioles opening day roster by the grace of God, I just think there's no chance that he starts at AAA. He's going to start at Bowie. It's up to him to see how quickly he leaves there. It could be an instance where he's there for a month and he's just torching everything. And it's like, all right, put him in AAA. And I think he's actually, I think he's firmly a part of the Orioles 2023 plans. I don't think that they thought that before the spring, and then he went out there and had the best spring of everybody, not named Franchy Cordero, amazingly enough. He went out there and had a monstrous spring, and he's earned his way into the Orioles' plans for this season. I would not be surprised to see him DHing or playing right field for the Orioles the second half of the year.
I mean, that would be exciting and a heck of a turnaround after missing 2 years because of myocarditis. You're just so happy for the guy. You know, I can't imagine how tough it was for him not being able to play for so long after being the second overall pick in the draft in a bit of a stunner. People weren't expecting him to go that high. And then he does, and he's got, all the expectation from that. And then suddenly he can't do anything on the field. And now he's back, and man, he looks like the number 2 overall pick.
Looks the
he
part.
Really does. And it's at some point you can't deny that, if he continues to hit against this good pitching, especially as he creeps up through the farm system, yeah, he's going to make a case for himself, and we might see him. Now, I'm not sure we see him the second half of this year unless he's really, really tearing it up, which is certainly possible. I think it's more likely that we're talking about him as a potential break camp guy next year. But I'm so happy to see him finally back on the field, hitting the ball well. It's just so happy for the guy. I can't say that enough.
It's hard not to be, and I remember when he got picked, and we were all like, "What? What about Austin Martin? What about Austin Martin?" And now Austin Martin he's been traded, and he's not even a top 100 prospect. Meanwhile, Heston Kjerstad is climbing up lists left and right. He's hitting like a number 2 overall pick. They say he was the best left-handed amateur bat in the country. He looks like that. You think he has a chance to break camp with the team in 2024? I think we're talking about him in a similar vein to how we talk about Gunnar Henderson now. And when I say that, I don't think he's going to be number 1 overall prospect in baseball. I don't think we're going to say that he has the same ceiling as Gunnar Henderson, but I think he's going to be next year's version for us. He's going to be that guy in this system that they call up in August or September. He shows glimpses of what he can be in the future. And then it's like, well, there's your starting right fielder in 2024. I think he's securing his spot every single day for the 2024 season. I
wouldn't be upset about it. Certainly not. Well, that wraps up everything on our list aside from a couple listener questions. This is from Billy. Any suggestions for the new Frederick Atlantic League team name?
I got one.
What do you got?
The Frederick Mercury.
I love it. Yes.
The Frederick Mercury. And their mascot can just be a mustache.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm not even going to make a suggestion anymore. I can't top that. There's no way. The Frederick Mercury. That's perfect. Dylan wants to know, why does Adley wear a face guard when he's batting right-handed, but not when he's batting left-handed? And he tweeted us that question, and then he texted me and said, you said you wanted questions, so I gave you a question that nobody knows the answer to. LOL. Thank you, Dylan.
I know the answer.
Why?
When he was 17 years old, he got hit in the face by a fastball batting right-handed, so he's always worn a face guard since then.
Is that an honest answer?
No, I made it up. I made that up.
Okay. It was convincing.
You say anything with conviction, you can get people to believe it, right?
I didn't think you actually knew the answer to that question, but you said it with conviction. I thought you were telling the truth. It makes sense. Maybe that is what happened.
That would seem to be it. If maybe he's been brushed up and tight. High and tight a little too much, or maybe it's just something he saw somebody do. He thought it looked cool, started doing it, and then got used to it. I remember being a little league player when I was on my 9-10 team. We all had those face masks on our helmets, and I had no use for it. But everybody else was doing it, and at the time, I thought it looked cool, so I wore it the entire season. And I got used to it. That may be just what it is.
It could be something like wearing sleeves and wristbands or high socks. Like it could just be superstition or just what he does. Something that he thought looked cool and it stuck with him. Who knows? Anything else you wanted to throw in here?
Dude, I'm just so excited for the season. We're doing our MLB season preview tomorrow on the Bat Around for Press Box Sports from 10 a.m. to, we usually go to 12:30. We'll probably go until closer to 1 because Luke Jackson's going to be sitting in with us. And you were there the first time we had Luke Jackson. We went till 1 o'clock. It was our first ever 3-hour show. Plus, the season preview always takes longer anyway. I'm just so excited to talk about baseball and to talk about the Orioles. And I think the Orioles are I think they're really good this year. Now, their season starts easy. And when I say easy, they have 28 games in April and 29 games in September. And their first month and their last month is probably the easiest stretch of games that they're going to have all year. I think they can go 17-11 in the first month and 18-11 in the last month. So it starts and ends well for them. They have a real opportunity here. A lot of good teams. A lot of good teams in the American League. They got better. I'm just so excited to see how they measure up and stack up against the rest of baseball because they're going to get to play all the other 29 teams. Going to be such a fun season. I am chomping at the bit for it to get started. Let's go.
I'm so excited for this new schedule. It's it's nice that we're not going to be, playing 10 games in the Bronx and 10 games at Fenway, 10 at Tropicana Field. I'm glad that we're going to have this variety. And like you said, it's going to be cool to see, how they fare against the Padres and the Cincinnati Reds, like all those teams in the National League that you're not going to normally get to play. It's going to be exciting. But it starts Thursday in Boston. We'll try to do a show before then once the rosters are set. I'm sure the Orioles still have some cuts to make this coming week, and we'll have more to talk about leading into the season. But for now, I still didn't make an intro or outro video. We've been doing a ton of wedding prep this past week. We booked our photographer, which was a huge piece of it.
Nice.
We had a menu tasting up at the venue, so we had to do that. But we've been in wedding mode, so I haven't really been in podcast mode, and that probably shows. But we're going to get back on track. We're going to be doing this throughout the season, and really looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a lot of great stuff to talk about. It's an exciting team, man. Last year seemingly came out of nowhere to break 500 for the first time since 2016, and now it feels like it's time to take that next step.
Yeah,
And
absolutely take the next step.
there's a lot of guys in place that I think are capable of helping the team get there. And so, yeah, man, it's an exciting time. It's my favorite time of year. The weather's starting to warm up a little bit.
Mhm.
I have serious FOMO of all these people down in Florida watching the games that I follow on Twitter. But I hope all of you are having fun. And let's do
Nice,
it, man. I'm pumped.
nice eye roll. Hope all you're having fun.
That was unintentional. I might have had one too many sips of my salty caramel whiskey.
You can never have too many sips of that.
It's good, man. It's my first time having it. It's actually really solid.
Yeah,
A little sweet, but it's like salted caramel is my favorite flavor of anything.
I hear you, man. We at the restaurants I've been working at. We did this toasted marshmallow old fashioned with bullet. It was bullet bourbon, and then like they had like marshmallow they put in it and like around the rim and stuff like that. It was so good.
Dude,
So good.
I'm gonna have to stop by for one of those because that sounds.
Oh,
phenomenal.
they might still be able to make it, but it's not on the menu anymore. It was a winter cocktail, but they could probably still make it for you.
If you at least like text me the recipe, I'll make it myself. If
Okay.
if you can find it, that would be
Melanie's the bar manager. She created it. She can just give. I can text you right now. She can give it to me.
beautiful.
All
right, man.
I'll send it to you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Derek and Tony at Utah Street Report for hosting the podcast. Thank you to Paul for doing this with me as always. And we will see you guys next week on Give That Fan a Podcast.